Today we will do the integration of OAuth2 Proxy with Istio. What is OAuth2 Proxy? OAuth2 Proxy is a river proxy which helps to provide authentication with different IDP providers like Google, GitHub, Azure, and many more. And We will look how we can integrate with the Kubernetes cluster with Istio. OAuth2 Proxy has very good documentation, how to install, how to set up, all those information is there using Helm chart, or even you can do with the deployment um, YAML file also. And You can see it supports many IDPs, and you can find a lot of information on internet um, to support many IDPs. So today, what we will do, I'm going to use Microsoft Azure AD integration with OAuth2 Proxy, and we'll talk about the integration, what I have done, and how this authentication work. And in the future video, I will also talk about the authorization, how you can leverage Istio, even do the authorization also. So what we are achieving with this integration, you don't have to maintain and write code on the application or microservice layer, right? Because everything is done by OAuth2 Proxy with combination of Istio Ingress controller. There is another solution with OAuth2 Proxy and Nginx also. I will talk about that in future. But let's see how this Istio things work and how this OAuth2 Proxy work with Istio. So Istio is very popular service mesh. It's an open service mesh. It has a lot of capabilities. Um, Given that not just providing MTLS, secure your traffic between different container, but also doing the traffic management, logging, monitoring, and the rules, policies with Ingress and Egress controller. A lot of features it has. So they have very good documentation too, how to install. And I have a Kubernetes cluster in my machine where I have installed the Istio. You can see Istio is enabled. This is Istio namespace, and then I have a default namespace where I installed Istio book info application setup, right? So if you see, Istio has book info application as a what we can say as a application where you can play and look how things work in the service mesh environment. And this book info application is a set of multiple application. You can see the overall architecture here, the flow and all. It has review microservice, it has product page, it has rating microservice, and you use this book info and enable Istio. And Istio has multiple concepts as virtual service, gateway, which we use to expose the services. So with Istio, you get a few more application. If you go back to the lens again, and you can see um, if I will go to the Istio, we have Jaeger, Kiali, Prometheus, Grafana, right? All those things we have, which we get with Istio. We have a Kiali. So you can add these by default. There are options you want to install, you don't want to install, but you can look what is your requirement and you can add more components. So you can see I installed this one. They have very good information how to do that. And my focus is not right now on Istio and how to set up Istio. My focus is on more how to do the OAuth2 proxy. So this is a Kiali setup where we have Istio Ingress gateway, and you can see the traffic is coming from Ingress gateway to OAuth2 proxy, and OAuth2 proxy. We have to set up egress also because it has to talk with Azure IDP, Azure which is Azure AD. So it goes to via Istio Ingress, it goes to the Azure, and it gets the OAuth2 token and do the authentication in a two-step process. First, it redirect if session is not there, if user is not authenticated, it set it send the user to Azure to log in, and once it is done, Azure, when user is logging on Azure, it sets ID token, right? So ID token is JWT token, and that ID token OAuth2 proxy again check this valid or not. And um, once that session is done, then it sends that uh, to product page microservice, given that the user is authenticated, and then it works and it goes to the review, and review goes to the ratings. So this is the overall architecture, and let me show how it is working. So log in on the product page website. You can see it is redirecting to login, and once you log in, you will be able to access your application, right? So this is the way we integrate with Istio. And now let's see the setup what we have, right? So we have OAuth2 Proxy. You can see I'm using Azure AD. This is a deployment where I'm passing these variables. All this information is on there on OAuth2 Proxy website. So you have to set all those things. Once your deployment is done, you will have a service, corresponding service also running. So we'll have OAuth2 proxy service running. Locally it runs on 4180. You have to set up the virtual service for your book info app. You have to mention that if it is OAuth2, you have to send to OAuth2 proxy service, and product page and static you have to send on where your product page service is up and running. You will set up the gateway. So this is, by the way, this is not SSL. This is just HTTP. We will talk in the future video about how to set up SSL also. And then we have a request authentication. This is very important. So let's go back and see. Yeah, so let's see authentication. Authentication. How we do the authentication using Istio. So in the authentication side, you have authentication policy, JWT, claim-based routing, and mutual TLS migration. So our focus will be, authentication policy using JWT, and we will not directly go to this one, but we will see if you go down. I'm not covering the how this mutual TLS and all those things, as the scope of this discussion is only authentication as an end user authentication, and you can see how we do that. So we have gateway, virtual service, and then we have request authentication, which I was showing just before. And you can see we did set up this one using Azure AD, and we provided JWT provider and the URL, right? So we did all those things. So this is where you will set this one on Ingress gateway. So let's talk about again the whole flow. So we have Istio Ingress gateway where we set up the request authentication policy. When the request is coming, it will check that user is authenticated or not. If not, it will go to the OAuth2 proxy. OAuth2 proxy will send the traffic via Istio Ingress. You need this one because to go outbound request, and it will redirect the user. That as a result, it will redirect the user to authenticate. And once the user is authenticated, it will send traffic to the product page, right? And the product page will go to the V1, V2, or details website to get this information.